Hi, it's Friday afternoon and time to look back at what happened at Queen's Park this week. I do these videos in my kitchen, so this is my actual kitchen, and after I finish the video, we prepare dinner. But today, I'm just going to prepare dinner and talk about politics. There's a favorite chickpea and spinach recipe of mine. I've known it for over 30 years, and I'm going to put it together and talk about politics. The first thing this week, is that the COVID numbers are only slowly decreasing. The stay-at-home period has been extended to June the 2nd, and there's a lot of debate about what things we can reopen and what we can't reopen. The second item I want to talk about is the government bills. All of the government bills by the end of this week were in committee. In fact, Thursday morning they didn't even have a session because there were no debates in the main legislature. And then there's something that I want to point out about the provincial legislature that's different from the federal and municipal legislature, the City of Kingston Council, during COVID. If you'd like to keep watching and find out about my recipe and whether I can cook and talk politics at the same time, please stay tuned. Otherwise, join me next week as I talk about what happened at Queen's Park. So this recipe is something that I've known over 30 years. When I was in graduate school, I found this recipe, and I've loved this dish ever since. It's chickpeas and spinach, but there's a few special things about it. I'm going to start out by talking about the COVID cases. The COVID numbers in Ontario have been going down only very slowly. And because of that, the stay-at-home order has been extended by 2 weeks to June the 2nd. And I know people are really anxious to get out, and they look at the other jurisdictions in North America. They look at many of the states in the United States, which are opening up in the next few weeks. But here in Ontario, the vaccines continue to be delivered. One thing that happened this week was that the AstraZeneca, the province said that they would no longer give first doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine because of a small risk of blood clots. But there's research that shows that if you had the first dose and there was no problem, that there's a very low risk of getting blood clots in the second dose. So the second dose will definitely reduce your health risk overall. Another development was that Indigenous communities off reserve will now get their second shots within 3 weeks instead of 12 weeks because there's a data showing that the health impacts on Indigenous peoples were much higher than the rest of the population.
Hey, I left out something. There's really important discussions going on about what sort of reopening that we can have, because everybody's tired of being in their homes. And so we have to think about what are the little ways that we can make life better. So for example, there's a debate about, can you play golf in the situation that we're currently in? And we probably could if we wear masks, but the government is perhaps worried about people not wearing masks when they're playing golf. Or maybe they just want to look tough and look like they're imposing tough restrictions to contain the virus. The second thing, which I think is really important, is visits to long-term care homes and retirement care homes. Almost everybody in the long-term care homes and retirement homes have got 2 vaccine doses. So why can't we have outdoor visits with masks? And or maybe if there's some risk, how can we minimize that risk so that it makes sense to allow those kinds of visits, and so that the mental health balances outweighs the virus risks. The other thing is, can we have a regional approach to school reopenings? Does the whole province have to stay closed for the whole rest of the school year, or can some parts of the province where the prevalence of the virus is low, can they reopen early? And the last thing is this debate about where the transmission is occurring. Where should we focus our efforts? And there's a debate about whether it's coming in through our borders or whether the transmission at workplaces is more important. And science seems to say that it's the transmission at workplaces where we have to put most of our effort to fight the virus. Anyways, I just wanted to mention that because those are really important debates that are taking place now that will have a big effect on our lives over the next month.
So let me start on my on my recipe. This recipe takes a couple of hours of kind of stewing in a pot to get the flavors to really mix. Starts with chickpeas, so I've got some canned chickpeas, and I'm going to put it in my Instapot here, and I'm going to grab a spoon to help me get it through, get it out of the can. So that's one main ingredient. The other one is spinach, and the best thing is fresh spinach or frozen spinach, but I have some canned spinach I need to use up. It's in the pantry, so this is a really good opportunity to use up some canned spinach. And then the third flavor is tomatoes. So I've got some tomato paste here. So I'm going to throw in some tomato paste. The fourth flavor is onions. So I'm going to put in the onions that I have pre-sauteed in a lot of olive oil. So for the amount of ingredients I'm putting in, I have about 1/3 of a cup of olive oil. So this is a big olive oil recipe. I'll just throw that in. And then I'm going to throw in some salt, maybe this much salt, about a teaspoon or so. Now I'll tell you the secret ingredient at the end, but the second thing I want to talk about is all the government bills that are in committee this week. The first one is Bill 283, which is about setting up structures to regulate certain healthcare professions, such as PSWs. The second one, 251, it's a bill about hotel registries, and it's about police access to hotel registries in order to try to use it as a tool to deal with human trafficking. The third bill is 288, which is about apprenticeships, speeding up apprenticeships, and the replacement for the College of Trades, which the current government got rid of. And the last bill is about, regulates a whole bunch of things: e-bikes, passing streetcars, street racing, and also the tow truck industry here in Ontario. The thing that I want to mention about the provincial legislature, which is different during the pandemic, is that there's no online component of it. The federal parliament has people sitting at home debating online through something like Zoom. City council here in Kingston has online meetings, but the provincial legislature only meets face-to-face, which is kind of interesting. And so how do they put everybody inside the legislature? The answer is they don't. There's an agreement between parties that only about half of the MPs show up, but in a certain ratio so that the government retains its majority. Everybody wears masks, and the votes go as if the government had a majority. And maybe the only exception, the strange exception, is that a certain member of provincial parliament from Lanark Frontenac in Kingston, who does not like to wear masks, hasn't voted in the legislature since last summer and hasn't spoken since last November. And so he may be criticized for that, but people should just keep in mind that there's an agreement between all the parties that only half of the MPPs are in attendance. Okay, so lastly, the secret ingredient for this recipe, and it is to put a lot of black pepper in it. So I have a little black pepper thing here, and I'm just gonna throw in a whole bunch. And so you can pretend that a lot of time passes because it takes a while to get all the pepper out of here, but just make sure you put a lot of pepper. So I might put up to something equivalent of like 2 teaspoons or a tablespoon of pepper, so it's nice and spicy. So that's my chickpea and spinach recipe, and I hope you agree that I can cook and talk about politics at the same time. If you like these videos, please follow me on social media, and please put any comments that you have in the space below. Thanks for watching, and I hope you join me next week as I look back at what happened at Queen's Park.